uh, we will be seeing the immunodiffusion. What is an immunodiffusion? What are the types of immunodiffusion? Like that, we'll be seeing all these things. Okay, so yeah, first we will see what is an immunodiffusion. Okay, so and then what is the principle behind this, and then what are all the applications of the immunodiffusion. Okay, so and then what are the types of immunodiffusion, which includes so single immunodiffusion, double immunodiffusion, and then what is a precipitation curve, and then what is a medium for immunodiffusion, and then finally we'll be going for types of immunodiffusion in this in this particular PPT is concerned. Okay, first we will start with the introduction. Okay, as we all know that immunodiffusion is nothing but a technique, just like the electrophoresis and then chromatography is one of the technique. Okay, so this is a technique which is used for studying the reaction between antigens and antibodies. As we all know, what is an antigen and what is an antibody. So antigens are nothing but the foreign substance, any foreign substance which entered in our body, they will be considered as antigens. And then antibody is nothing but the immune response produced by the immune response produced by our cells. Okay, we know that antibodies are nothing but B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, and then we will be considered as lymphocytes over there. Okay, so how we gonna see that? So this is nothing but immunodiffusion, nothing but the reactions of antigens with the antibody. Okay, so the combinations of antigen and antibody. Okay, so when they will happen, where they will happen. So this immunodiffusion nothing but a technique which denotes the precipitation reactions of antigen and antibody in a particular medium. So this immunodiffusion nothing but a technique. So it shows the combination of antigens and antibody, okay, in a particular medium. In a particular medium is nothing but that medium is nothing but gel. Okay, maybe the gel. Okay, so if that antigen and antibody is going for the reactions, they will be going for precipitation. So they will be going for precipitation by using the precipitation. Okay, they will be separately placed over there. So this is nothing but introduction about that immunodiffusion nothing but a technique which used for the studying reactions between antigens and antibodies by observing precipitation reactions. So precipitation reaction in the sense the reaction which takes place in between antigen and antibody. Okay, so this is what. Okay, so once again just like the repetitions of that introduction. So it's a term that denotes a precipitation in gel. Okay, we will be taking the gel. In the gel, we will be taking that antigen and antibody, and then we will be seeing the precipitation reactions of both antigen and antibody reaction. Okay, this is a term which denotes the precipitation in a gel, which provides more sensitive and which will be giving specific results. So when we are placing that antigen antibody in the gel, that will give a more sensitive reaction, specific results. Results will be more specific, and then this reaction it forms after the precipitation. It forms a band. Okay, so and then that can be stained by weaving. That will be used for the preservation. Okay, and then this technique also indicates the identity and the cross reaction. So cross reaction and non if it is a cross reaction, right? Sorry, so this technique is also used to indicate the identity, whether it is identical or not. Whether it is not, if it is non-identical, that will be going for cross reactions in between the different antigen. Okay, so as we all know that each antigen will be acted upon by this peculiar and particular antibody. Antigen will be having a particular antibody. The same kind of terms what we are following in case of antigen and antibody interactions, just like that enzyme substrate. Don't go deeper into that enzyme substrate. Just I'm just saying like that. Okay, just consider that enzyme substrate. Just like that, antigen will be binding with an antibody. Okay, so this technique, this immunodeficient technique, is also indicates the identity and cross reaction, as well as that will be going for precipitation reactions in between antigen and antibody. There are various types of immunodiffusion tests are in practice, but we'll be seeing some of the techniques, which includes A single immunodiffusion, double immunodiffusion, that had been classified into one dimension and two dimension. Okay, yeah. So and then yeah, what is the application behind this immunodiffusion technique? So it provides a major role in case of relative concentrations of antigen and antibody, and then it is used to compare the antigens, okay, whether to and to determine the relative purity of the antigen preparation. And then this is used for diagnosing the disease, and then this immunodiffusion is used for serological surveys. Okay, so, by the combination of antibody with antigen, this fundamental reaction immunology, uh, okay, this had been classified into three major things. Nothing but it will be used for primary binding test, secondary binding test, and tertiary binding test. Okay, so what is the principle behind this? So it's a very simple principle. So just look into it. A soluble antigen and a soluble antibody interacting in a aqueous solution from form. Okay, so it's nothing but they will be having one soluble antigen and soluble antibody. So we know that both will be interacting together when they will be interacting in a particular aqueous solution form lattice. Okay, if that lattice develops into an insoluble visible precipitate. Okay, so is a thing about that. And then so soluble antigens, which includes that antigen may be a toxin, maybe the toxoid or protein or carbohydrates or glycoproteins or lipoproteins. So these things will be considered as I mean antigen soluble antigens, and then they'll be estimated both qualitatively and quantitatively in solution and gels. Okay, and then the formation of antigen antibody lattice, which depends on the valency. Okay, so which includes the valency of both antigen as well as the antibody. Okay, so the antibody must be the bivalent because it has a the antibody must be a bivalent fab fragments. Okay, and then uh, we can able to consider that antigen as maybe a bivalent or polyvalent. It depends on the antigen because we can't able to predict the antigen. Okay, but antibody must be a bivalent with the fragments, and then antigen must be a bivalent or polyvalent. Okay, so and then we use another principle like when a soluble antigen, so we'll be having it's a soluble antigen when it is combines with that antibody, soluble antibody, so it forms antigen antibody complex. Okay, so which forms that insoluble precipitate, okay, so this precipitation results in the area where antigen and antibody present in equal amounts. Okay, so where the antigen and antibody is present in equal amounts. Okay, so this zone is nothing but zone of equivalence. So when that zone where that antigen and antibody are equal, so then the zone is known as zone of equivalence. This is nothing but most important one, zone of equivalence. Okay, okay, and then after the zone of equivalence, right, they will be forming a large lattice. I hope you know about the lattice. So when the precipitation when this precipitation is allowed in a gel medium, right, so what happens? So when this precipitation is taking place in the gel medium, okay, so this reaction is visible as a distinct band of precipitation. So if you are seeing that antigen and antibody reaction in the gel medium, right, it seems to be like visible like a distinct band of precipitation. Okay, and then so, what gel will be used? We will be preferring that agar gel or agarose gel. Can you able to get it? This is a soluble antigen. This is a soluble antibody. Okay. So, whenever the antigen is combined with that antibody, it forms that antigen antibody complex. So, both will be the soluble thing. When it combines together, they forms this insoluble precipitate. Insoluble precipitate. So, what happens if this insoluble precipitation takes place? If that insoluble precipitation takes place, this results in the area where antigen antibody are present in equal amount. Okay, so if that antigen and antibody are present in the equal amount, is nothing but zone of equivalence. It's the most important thing. Okay, so there's nothing but zone of equivalence. Okay, if it is if in the zone of equivalence only, there will be a large form of lattice will be there, and then that precipitation seems to be more. Okay, precipitation seems to be more in case of large lattice. So when this antigen antibody reaction takes place, when the precipitation is allowed over there, so in a gel medium, what happens? So if you are keeping the gel, if you are keeping these things in the gel medium, what happens? So the reaction is visible in distinct, so the visible, I mean the reaction will be visible in distinct band of precipitation. Okay, so in this way, this is a principle behind this. And then this one, this immunodeficient technique, the major point I want to stress is about this is nothing but a reaction of antigen and antibody reactions, which will be going for precipitation in a gel medium, in a agarose gel or gel medium. This is a principle behind this. So if you are doing this, that will be, you will be getting a precipitation curve. What is a precipitation curve? Okay, so this precipitation curve, it denotes the equivalence. I said about the zone of equivalence, no? So antibody should be equal to antigen. So if both antigen and antibody are equal, then zone of equivalence will be at the peak, the dumbbell shaped curve over there. Okay, is it? No. So when this is the three things we are just explaining over there. If that antigen is more, okay, so just we'll finish off this one first. So during the zone of equivalence, right, that will be going for optimum precipitation in the pro zone. In the pro zone is nothing but the first, I mean, okay, so the prozone is nothing but when the antibodies present, excess antibodies present. If that antibody is more when compared to that antigen levels, that is nothing but that will comes under the prozone. Okay, so if that antibody is excess, it will be going for this, I mean like this. If that antigen is present in excess amount, that will be going for post zone. You will be getting like this. Antibody, whenever the antibody is excess, you will be getting like this. Whenever that antigen is excess, you will be getting like this. In case of equivalence, you can get the reactions like this. Okay, clear? This is nothing but precipitation curve. So you can get the precipitation curve in the zone of equivalence. So you will be getting the maximum number of precipitation. The precipitation level will be higher in case of zone of equivalence. This is the most important thing. Whenever the amount of antigen equals that amount of antibody, the reaction rate will be more like a zone of equivalence. In the zone of equivalence, you will be getting more amount of you'll be getting more amount of precipitate. Okay, this is what this precipitation curve denotes. So just remember these things. During the zone of equivalence only, optimum precipitation takes place during the pro zone. So it's nothing but when the excess antibody is present. In the post zone is nothing but when the excess antigen is present. Okay, so this pro zone and post zone will be giving the negative reactions. So like reactions was not seems to be like somewhat nice. Okay, so this immunodeficient precipitation reactions will be dealing with the two things. So if you're taking that immunodeficient reaction, that will be going for two major things. One is nothing but radial immunodeficient. It is otherwise known as Mancini method. And second one is nothing but outer Loni double diffusion. And then we will be going for electrophoresis. In the electrophoresis, we will be having two things: rocket electrophoresis and immunoelectrophoresis. And then precipitation is best demonstrated and random movement of antigen and antibody forms antigen antibody complex in medium such as gel. As already I had explained. So let us move to the medium. So what are the mediums we'll be using in case of that immunodiffusion? So one medium is nothing but gel medium. So gel, in case of gel medium, the gel had been, we can able to prepare the gel in from two things. So one is nothing but agar, and second thing is nothing but agarose. So what is the difference between agar and agarose? Just look into it. So agar is a high molecular weight complex. So it is a polysaccharide which we had extracted from the seaweed. And then agarose, it is a purified agar. From the agar, weird. When the agar is going for purification, we can able to get agarose. When the agar got purified, we can able to get agarose. It is nothing but purified agar. Can able to get it. Yeah, agar is nothing but which is having a high molecular weight complex of polysaccharide from we had extracted from seaweed. Okay, and then second thing is nothing but, so what is agarose? So agarose is nothing but a sugar. So you can able to remember O's. So if we are getting that, if you are getting the sorry, so agarose is nothing but a sugar. We are just extracted from the agarose is nothing but purified agar. So what is the use of this agar? So this agar, which is used to stabilize the diffusion process and allow the visualization of precipitant bands. So I just said, so it will be that antigen and antibodies will be going for precipitation reaction. If you are using this agrogel, right? So we can able to visualize the bands very nicely. And then this agros also plays a vital role in case of electrophoresis. Okay, so we can use this agros for I mean gel electrophoresis. Okay, all that. And then just look into it. This is a point. So there is a 0.3 to 1 point percentage of sorry 0.3 to 1.5 percentage of agar concentration. The diffusion will be, I mean, diffusion of most reactants will take place. And then agros. So agros are more preferred than agar. Why? Because agar has a strong negative charge, but agros doesn't have strong negative charge. Okay, so just look into it. Agros has almost none. It will be like neutralized one. So which will allow the interactions between that antigen antibody to take place in a huge amount. And then right, so we can get a maximum precipitation in case of agar gel is concerned. And then we can look into it. What is a passive diffusion? Okay, so this passive diffusion is nothing but it's a method in which a concentration gradient is established for antigen and antibody. Okay, so if that concentration gradient had been established, right, what happens? There will be the diffusion of reactants to form AG, I mean antigen antibody reactions. Okay, so without the electric current to speed up the reactions. Okay, so this rate of diffusion depends on the size of particle, temperature, gel viscosity, amount of hydration, and interactions between the matrix and reactant. This is a, these are all the factors which will be having, which will be affecting the rate of diffusion. Okay, so and then now we just look at the types of immunodiffusion. These types of immunodiffusion, which includes, we will be classifying the immunodiffusion into two types: single radial immunodiffusion and double immunodiffusion. You can ask me what is a single immunodiffusion. So we will be going for the single diffusion in two ways. So single diffusion in one dimension and single diffusion in two dimension. Okay, and then double diffusion in one dimension and double diffusion in two dimension. So this single diffusion in one dimension, we'll be going for Odin procedure. OUDIN, Odin procedure. In case of a single diffusion into in two dimension, right, we'll be going for radial immunodiffusion. Radial immunodiffusion. Okay, so this is what, and then in case of double immunodiffusion, right? As during double immunodiffusion, we'll be having same kind of things. We'll be having double diffusion in one dimension and double diffusion in two dimension. So, what is use of that? How we will call it as double immunodiffusion in one dimension is nothing but Olake full throw procedure. Okay, and then in case of double diffusion in two dimension, we will call it as Okotrolny double immunodiffusion. In this way, we will call this both the things over there. Yeah, this is the one. This is the way. So there's nothing but radial immunodiffusion. So single diffusion in two dimension is nothing but radial immunodiffusion. So this is a single diffusion technique. So what happens where antibody is put into the gel and antigen is measured. So we are just putting that antibody into the gel, and then so while making the gel we will be putting antibody, and then we will be measuring that antigen. Okay, so if you are adding that antigen and antibody, so that will be going for precipitation reactions, and then that will be forming the ring. Okay, and then that will be going for diffusion purposes, and then we can able to diffuse out in all directions from the gel over there. And then you can ask me, what is outer Loney double diffusion? Here, both antibody and antigen will be diffused. Both antigen and antibody will be diffused from the wells, so into a gel medium. So in case of radial immunodiffusion, okay, so antibody will be put into the gel and then antigen is measured. Okay, so in case of a double diffusion, both antigen and antibody will be diffused from well into a gel medium. There's a difference between these things. So this is a technique. So radial immunodiffusion. So what is a radial immunodiffusion? Just look into it. I think your textbook. Yeah. Just look into it. What is a radial immunodiffusion? Okay, we'll finish on this one. So here the antigen will be added. So the antigen is added to the antibody rich media. Already it has the so much of antibody. Okay. So here we are adding that antigen. Okay, and then already this glass slide will be coated with agar containing specific antibody. That's the point number one. Already this glass had antibody rich medium. Antibody is more here, and then we are just adding the antigen. So already we are made antibody here. Already antibody is rich in this slide, and then we are adding antigen. Okay, due to that, what happens? So antigen will be reacting with that antibody, that will be going for zone of equivalence. So the the two to continue to react with the zone of equivalence, it is reached. Okay, so just look into it. So standard 1, standard 2, and standard 3. So and during the unknown, right, what happens? So just look into that curve. So precipitant ring, so diameter of the precipitant ring, just look into it. So 10, so and then it will be going for 15, and then it will be going for 25, like this. So concentration of the test reactant will be calculated with this curve. So the test, so the unknown is nothing but a test one. So we can able to get that ring at this level. Okay, so this is what the curve shows, this unknown reaction. So this unknown antigen had shown this value, so this precipitation value, and then we will be marking the curve over there. Each and then that value will be considering the concentration of test reactant is nothing but total amount of antigen present over there. Okay, so it shows that amount of antigen over there. So what is how the, the reaction, it shows the reaction between the antigen and antibody. Okay, so just look into it. So this method is nothing but we can use two methods. So whether we can use antibody in gel or antigen in a well. So just look into it. So already it's nothing but antibody containing gel. Already antibody is there, and then we are making a small hole, and then we are adding an antigen into it. If you are adding the antigen into that already antibody coated gel, so what happens? That will be going for precipitant ring formation. Can you see that? The precipitant ring formation, and then finally we can get the ring like this. So when we are plotting that graph, right, and then we will be going for interpretation. So the diameter of the ring is directly, the diameter of the ring is proportional to the concentration. So if that ring increases, if the concentration, if the diameter of the ring increases, it shows the concentration of that antigen is also increases. Okay, so so this is what, and then quantitative and gauge of immunoglobulin levels. Okay, so this is a curve behind this. Okay, so this curve shows that this is a standard graph. It shows this reaction, so antigen concentration with that antibody. So this curve shows that antigen concentration for that. And then this is some of the picture of that single radial immunodiffusion. So here we'll be having reagents will be added into that agarose gel. So agarose after making the agarose gel, they will be pouring out, we will be pouring into that glass slide. After pouring into the glass slide, we'll be making some small wells is nothing but a small holes like this. So and then what happens? So we are just adding that anti-immunoglobulin. So we are just adding that anti-immunoglobulin. So after adding the anti-immunoglobulin, you can ask me, what is anti-immunoglobulin? Anti-immunoglobulin, so which is acting against the immunoglobulin. So after adding the anti-immunoglobulin, so in the step number 2, what we are adding, we will be adding a serum sample and immunoglobulin standard into the wells. So immunoglobulin standard in the sense the known value, which is nothing but under concentration like this. So like a 200, I mean, so we will be taking like a 200 milligrams per deciliter of immunoglobulin standards over there in case of first well, and then we'll be adding 400, 800, 1600 like this. And then finally we'll be keeping that sample A. Sample A is nothing but test sample, and sample B is nothing but second test sample. And then we'll be allowing the, we'll be allowing it for diffusion, okay, into the gel. So after diffusing into the gel, right, you can able to see like this. So and then there will be the reaction between that antigen and antibody. So that will be going for the formation of precipitant ring. Okay. Okay, so after forming the precipitant ring, right, we'll be noting that already we have said na. So we'll be measuring the diameter, so which is diameter of the ring. So this diameter of the ring, which is proportional to that immunoglobulin concentration. So this is what single radial immunodiffusion is all about. So you can ask me, what is Auchterlonie? So Auchterlonie is a technique in which, so Auchterlonie is a method here the both antigen, okay, and antibody can diffuse independently. So just look into it. So this is a serological entity. So like antigen A1 and antigen, okay, antigen A1, and so this is on an antigen, this is another antigen. So this is antibody. It has a reaction between both the things over there. Okay, and then just look into it. This is nothing but identical thing, it will be going for, it will be reacting with both the things, and it can form the precipitation reactions. In case of non-identical, in case of identical, it will be giving like this. Okay, it will be giving the matching, we'll be calling it as matching. But in case of that, look at the B sample. So in case of a B picture, so it depicts, so it will be having antigen 1 and antigen 2, and then we'll be adding one antibody. So if you are adding this antibody, right, so what is the reaction which takes place? So it is going for cross matching, it is be going for cross reaction. Okay, so it will be going for we'll be calling it as non-identity. In case of this one, we will be calling it as identity, so serological identity. Okay, it is going for identical reactions over there. In case of this one, so B sample, it is showing that non-identity because it doesn't get matched to, I mean, it doesn't get a match. Okay, it shows a cross match. Can you able to get, so cross matched in between that antigen and antibody reactions. And then, so here look into this, it's somewhat like mm, some a different thing over there. So here this antibody having the reaction with this only one antigen, so that's why you'll be getting a partial identity. Okay, so partial identity, you can get the curve like this. One will be like this, and then yeah, it will be showing like this. So it shows that partial identity, this one can able to form the precipitation reaction with that antigen and antibody. Antigen antibody precipitation takes place here, but in case of this one, it doesn't take place. So this shows that partial identity between this sample. So the first picture depicts the serological identity of antigen 1 and antibody 1. And then, so this antibody can able to react with the, can able to form the precipitant reaction between both the things over there. And then in case of this one, okay, so in case of this one, what happens? So both the things doesn't get matched, so that's why it will be going for cross matching. In case of C picture, it depicts, it is going for partial identity. So first one is identity, second one is non-identity, second one is non-identity, third one is partial identity. So and then we'll move on to that double diffusion. So what is a double diffusion? So double diffusion in one dimension and double diffusion in two dimensions, like this we are classified. And then we can look into what is a double immunodiffusion. So in this diffusion of antibody, right, so that antigen and antibody, so they will be towards each other, they will be moving towards each other in lactose gel. So due to that, what happens, a line of precipitate will be forming in that. And then when the line of precipitate forms, it depicts if that antibody binds with that antigen, you can able to see the line of precipitation. So just look into it, this is nothing but antibody, so this is nothing but antigen. When this interaction goes, it will be going for precipitation. So this is nothing but antibody, antigen. So if the diffusion of antibody and an antigen towards each other, okay, if it has happened like this, there will be the line of precipitate will takes place. The line of precipitate will takes place. Okay. So where it is used to determine if an antigen or antibody is present. So I mean there we can use this double immunodiffusion. Okay, so this diffusion pattern, so already I had said you, so just look into it. So this is an antibody antigen. So what happens, it shows an identity. So okay, so and then so this is a serological identity which is present for common epitope. This is number one important one. And number two, so cross matching, non-identity. Non-identity is nothing but it demonstrates two separate reactions. So like this one cross and here is another cross. So complete cross. So it shows it doesn't have any link with this antigen and antibody. And third one is nothing but fusion of two lines with spur. So can I please see two lines have been, I mean, two lines had been merged together. So and then it shows, okay. So fusion will take place. So it shows the partial identity. It has some link with this one. So this antigen had a reaction with this one with the partial way. Okay, and then we can move on to immunoelectrophoresis. What is an immunoelectrophoresis? And then so in case of double diffusion technique, right, so it utilizes that electric current to enhance the result. So and then so there's nothing but immunoelectrophoresis, so which is used for which will be more speed in action, and the specificity will be more in case of other things is concerned. So and then it was introduced by Gerber and Williams in 1953, and then it combines with that immunodiffusion with electrophoresis is nothing but immunoelectrophoresis. When you're combining this electrophoresis with immunodiffusion, nothing but immunoelectrophoresis. Okay, so and then it can be used for semi-quantitation of a wide range of antigens, and then qualitative analysis of antigen, and then serum will be used as an antigen source here. So as we all know that electrophore is nothing but which separates the molecules according to difference in their electrical charge. So in this way, this electrophoresis techniques have been classified into two: rocket immunoelectrophoresis and countercurrent immunoelectrophoresis. So with the electric charge, we can able to separate the biomolecules. Okay, what is the principle behind this? Sorry for that image, whatever, I don't know. So it's a two-step process. So antigen from serum will be there, and then that will be going for electrophoresis, and then so this antigen will be going for precipitation reactions, and then after 24 hours, right? So I mean the serum, I mean I mean antigen will be separated, and then that will be antigen will be reacting with that antibody, that will be going for incubation 24 hours, and then you can able to form the precipitation reactions over there. So this is a thing. Okay, and then immunoelectrophoresis is another way. So what is happening over there? So immunoglobulins will be there. So we'll be giving serum will, and then we'll be doing a control will. So we will be adding an anti-serum trough, and then in the anti-serum trough is nothing but a small well, like it's like a small tube like thing over there. So what happens if you're adding the control well, right? So what happens, this immunoglobulin and albumin getting into the diffusion, and then so and then in case of patient serum well, right, I mean immunoglobulin albumin will be going for diffusion, direct diffusion process, and then we can able to see the arc like this. Can able to see the arcs. So this is an albumin arc, so direct diffusion arc of immunoglobulins. And then in case of control well, so immunoglobulin albumin level seems to be like on the opposite side, and then direct diffusion immunoglobulin levels, arc seems to be on opposite side. In this way it's nothing but this side shows a negative charge, and then this side shows a positive anode and cathode things over there. Okay, so electric, how we can keep that electricity in case of immunoelectrophoresis. So left side we have to keep that negative charge, and then in the right side we'll be keeping the positive charge. So this is a immunoelectrophoresis. So what is happening, so this is a well, this is a repetition. So this is a well, so we are just adding the serum onto the well, So electrophoresis serum proteins will be there. So since the biomolecules are negatively charged, that will be moving towards the positive end. Okay, so and then you will be adding, then anti-serum will be added into the slot. What happens, this will be going for moving reactions. So this serum will be reacting with these things, and then we can able to get we can able to see the diffused proteins over there. And then after that, what happens, so we can able to see the precipitin rings and precipitin lines over there. So these are all the precipitin lines, various precipitin lines. So how it can be used? So it had been used with two methods over there. Antigens are separated by electrophoresis and antibodies placed through trough contained to the agar. So these are most two important things what we are following in this method. So first we will be taking that antigens that will be separated by electrophoresis, and then antibody will be placed through the cut in the agar. So just look into it. So, antigen will be separated. After that, anti-serum will be added to the trough. What happens? And then both, after keeping that antigen and antibody, both the things will be going for a diffusion process or the precipitation reactions. And then we can able to see the precipitation, precipitin rings. I mean precipitin arc or rings. I mean precipitin arcs. So it represents an individual antigen. So I repeat, so we will be using two important steps in this method is concerned. Antigens are separated by electrophoresis, and then antibody is placed in trough. So this trough is nothing but a small like what to say, a small like vessel thing over there. Okay, yeah. So antigen will be placed over there. Antigen will be separated by the electrophoresis. Since antigens are over there negatively charged, that will be moving toward the positive end. And then we will be going for anti-serum interrupt. So you'll be adding that anti-serum, and then after keeping that anti-serum and antigen, so what happens, both the things will be getting reacted, and then that will be going for diffusion and precipitation reaction. So after that, we can able to see the precipitant ring like this. So this in this way we can interpret. So these precipitant rings are present in individual antigens. Okay, so this is what. So what is the use of these things over there? So during immunodeficiency diseases, okay, so can be detected if any immunological deficiency, right? We can able to detect by these procedures, okay, by using the precipitin band. By seeing the precipitin band, we can able to identify all the things over there. So if that serum proteins, if the serum proteins like albumin, globulin, like if that had been overly produced, right, we can able to see that whether it is produced in normal amount or not. During in case of some cancers, right, we can able to get more amount of proteins levels, serum albumin level will be more. Okay, I will not go deeper into this. So during deficiency in complement can also be detected. As we all know, during that antigen antibody reactions, complement plays a vital role. If any complement is not available also, if any complement is deficient also, we can able to detect by this technique over there. So and then we can able to identify the monoclonal protein. For example, free kappa and lambda light chains may be used over there. Okay, to identify urine proteins, whether the urine contains albumin, albumin urea. During albumin urea, whether the protein is present in the urine or not. So during nephrotic syndrome, whether the proteins are present over there or not. So for testing normal and abnormal proteins in serum in urine, and then to check the purity of antigen. Okay, and then countercurrent electrophoresis. So what is a countercurrent electrophoresis? In that we'll be using antigen and antibody, so that will be migrating towards each other by electrophoresis. See, they will be migrate towards each other by electrophoresis. This has been used only when antigen and antibody having opposite charge. If you are using that antigen antibodies while they are having, both of them are having same charge, right, both of them will repel together. Okay, so both of them will repel, and then reaction will be collapse. So you should have to consider like this. You should have to consider like this. So we should have to look into it. So whether antigen and antibody are having opposite charge. If they are having opposite charge, we should have to go for this countercurrent electrophoresis. Why? Because why we are using this countercurrent electrophoresis? This countercurrent electrophoresis will be rapid, will be giving rapid results over there, and then it will be very speed over there, and then it is used to detect any anti-nuclear or ribonuclear protein is present over there. So and then rocket immunoelectrophoresis. What is a rocket immunoelectrophoresis? This is nothing but a Laurel technique. This is a one-dimension electroimmunodiffusion, which is adaptation with radio immunodiffusion. It's nothing but Laurel technique or one-dimension electroimmunodiffusion. So what is the use of this? This electrophoresis is used for the facilitation of antigen in agar. Okay, so where that antigen will be diffused into the well, and then the precipitation will be initiated, and then there will be a change in antigen concentration. Okay, so what happens, the dissolution of reformation of precipitation will takes place. Okay, so that end result will be like in the precipitant line, right? We can have that conical shape which resembles a rocket like substance. We have seen the precipitant line, right? So here we can see that a rocket line, a conical shaped precipitate line will be there. Okay, the height of the rocket is measured, and then that's why it earned the name rocket immunoelectrophoresis. Yeah, this is a diagram. Okay, can you able to see that rocket like diagram? So that's why they had given the name rocket electrophoresis. So this is that antibody in agarose gel. This is that antigen in the wells. Okay, if that concentration of antigen had been increased, okay, what happens? The reactions will be more. So we should have to maintain the pH like 8.6 pH is that mm, is that the normal pH. What we have to maintain for electrophoresis is 8.6 pH, and then they'll be using barbiton buffer over there. Okay, so just look into it. This is that antigen well, and then antibodies in agarose gel. So what happens? So if that reaction takes place, so antigen getting reacted with that antibody, we can able to get the precipitation reactions. So the precipitation reaction there we can see, 3 to 4 slides before we have seen that reactions will be like arc. Okay, so here it seems like a rocket like a rocket like substance over there. So that's why it earned the name rocket electrophoresis. Okay, due to that precipitation reaction, so you can able to see the rocket like bands over there. Okay, so if so the antibody, so this is nothing but antigen containing wells. So we can also use that antibody containing wells. So you have to consider, you have to remember only one thing. You have to think about that, that antigen and antibody should be having, yeah, opposite charge. So that's the most important thing. Okay, yeah. Okay, the thing. And then, so what are the use of this rocket immunoelectrophoresis? This rocket immunoelectrophoresis, so which is used for, yeah, they had mentioned about quantitate immunoglobulins. So for we can able to quantitate. So what is it amount of immunoglobulins present over there? And then for I forgot to say about this thing, we have to maintain the pH of 8.6. Majorly they'll be using only one important buffer like barbiton buffer. So and then for assaying of proteins, for assay proteins, right, we will be going, so we can able to see that what is the concentration of protein over there. In case of nephrometry, right, we can able to see only low concentration of protein. That one is also measured by this thing. So that, for example, alpha fetoprotein, immunoglobulins in urine and spinal fluid, so they will be measured with these things, or that by using the rocket immunoelectrophoresis. And then applications which includes screening tool for differentiation of more than 30 serum proteins. We know only three major serum proteins. Again, three plasma proteins. But in case of with this application, with this technique, right, we can able to screen more than 30 serum proteins. So and then which includes major class of immunoglobulins. And then we can able to detect the person is having any myeloma, and then malignant lymphoma, and the other lymph proliferative disorders. That's it. Thank you. Have a nice day.